Hey guys, I'm Rich from NeoWin, and today we're unboxing the HP Envy 14. So, if you're familiar with the Envy lineup, it's one step below Spectre. So think high-end, but not premium flagship, right? So, it's got those premium materials. This thing's made out of aluminum. It comes in a natural silver color, and so one of the big things here is that it's got a 16 by 10 display. This is a trend that you're seeing across the industry, right? Taller displays, either 16 by 10 or 3 by 2. And you're seeing 16 by 10 just across the board, right? And what that usually means is that some display suppliers decided to mass produce these things, and now PCs are getting them. So this is a 14-incher. Right, so I have a thing about taller displays like this, and I don't always like them. For example, Surface Book, right? 13.5 inches at 3 by 2 is very, very small to me. To me, the perfect size is 14 inches, 16 by 9. I like to have apps side by side. And once you get smaller than that, it starts feeling a little cramped, right? So you got to remember, all these screens are measured diagonally. So at 16 by 9, it's more like this. And then when you start going like this, the surface area, the total area of the screen, it gets much bigger, but the width gets smaller, right? So actually 13.5 inches at 3 by 2 is a much bigger screen than a 13.3 inch 16 by 9. It's a bigger screen than a 14-inch 16 by 9 display. However, it's not as wide, the same is for a 16 by 10, but it's not as drastic as going to 3 by 2. So we are seeing like 13.4 inch 16 by 10 displays, and if you're used to 13.3 inch 16 by 9, that's a reasonable change. But now this is 14 inch 16 by 10, and that might be the sweet spot. Like for me, like looking at something like 3 by 2, I need to go to 15 inch for that to actually be comfortable for me to use. 14 inches might work for a 16 by 10, so that's going to be cool, right? This thing also has some power under the hood, especially for a 14-inch PC. It's got dedicated graphics, GTX dedicated graphics, not like MX graphics. It's also got Iris Xe. This one has a Core i5-1135G7, which is the Tiger Lake i5. Unlike Ice Lake and Comet Lake, unlike 10th Gen, 10th Gen had 5 different i5s, 4 if you don't count V Pro. So like if you don't count V Pro, like we're going from 4 to 1, so that makes it a lot easier. It was super confusing with the i5s in the last generation, so that's a little easier now. So yeah, Core i5-1135G7, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. And this model actually costs $1249. It starts at $1069. That'll get you 8 gigs of RAM and integrated graphics, right? So yeah, it's a GTX 1650, which is cool. Although you don't get that 45-watt processor, which is kind of like a common combination when it comes to something like this. But this weighs in at 1.5 kilograms, so it's not quite as heavy as something else. For instance, there are other PCs that use a 45-watt processor and like a GTX 1650, but those are usually like a 15.6-inch laptop. So this is a 14-incher, so we're getting the dedicated graphics, and I actually think that the Tiger Lake CPU is going to be enough. I don't know what the TDP is of the CPU, because they could have actually jacked it up in here. It goes up to 28 watts. The charger that we have here, I don't know what it's going to be. It looks like it is... It's 135 watts, actually, which is kind of interesting, because it does have that what used to be called U-Series CPU. Actually, I need to keep that. I like to put chargers back in the box because it's so much easier to use my own chargers and then just send the box back when I'm done with the PC, but I am going to need that. The thing about 135 watt chargers is that USB-C doesn't come in 135 watts, right? Power delivery doesn't support that. So in order to get, once you get to a more powerful PC like this one, you need to have some kind of proprietary charger, but this is a regular pin barrel charger, right? So it is what it is. I like to use USB Type-C just because I like to be able to use my own chargers, you know. So we can take a look, by the way. This is HP's premium branding. You might also be familiar with the one where it's like a circle, and then it says HP inside of it. On its premium PCs, you get this one where it's just the stylized letters here. All right, so taking a closer look, I was kind of looking at the edges. Like, it almost seems like the lid is kind of curved or like uneven. It's see how much bigger the gap is here versus the front or the back. So that's kind of interesting. We do have Thunderbolt 4, which is nice. USB Type A, HDMI, headphone jack. We just have the one Thunderbolt 4 port, which is kind of interesting. So another Type A port over here and a micro SD port. So Thunderbolt 4, which is cool. I'm trying to get an answer from HP about this, but where you can connect, two 4K monitors, or you can connect an external GPU and stuff like that. So there's a lot of expandability that you can do with Thunderbolt 4. With Thunderbolt 3, it's the same as a full spec Thunderbolt 3, but there was also a base spec Thunderbolt 3 where OEMs could choose to use only 2 lanes, where you'd only be able to connect one 4K monitor and get 20 gigabits per second instead of 40 gigabits per second. So I'm trying to find out what the last NV had to see if this is actually an improvement or if they just had the full spec the whole time, right? So here we go, right? So we have the silver keys. You'll notice that everything is on the keyboard. This is an HP design trend that we're seeing, across its whole lineup. We're seeing it on Spectre now and everything, where instead of having buttons on the side or, a fingerprint sensor placed, next to the keyboard or something, you've got the fingerprint sensor right on the keyboard, a button for the camera privacy guard right on the keyboard, power button right on the keyboard. Everything you need, you got it right on the keyboard. Okay. Above the keyboard is our B&O speakers. I actually said that before I saw the branding over here, but honestly, as long as I've been reviewing HP laptops, they have been using Bang & Olufsen speakers, right? By the way, I may have said GTX 1650 earlier. It's actually a 1650 Ti, which is quite impressive for a device like this. So this particular model does have touch in the display. See? Yeah, touch. Okay. This is full HD. It does not come in like a 4K variant or anything. So this is HP Display Control. This is an interesting little app that HP made, and it originally made this when it put an OLED display in the Spectre X360, because the thing about OLED is that the colors are brighter, more vibrant, and it's prettier to look at. But while it's more vibrant, that means it's not quite as accurate. And if you're using a PC like that in order to edit photos or edit videos where you need accurate colors, that's not the best. So what they did was they made HP display controls where now you can optimize the display for different things that you might be doing. So now you can change it to optimize for photos and videos, native, no optimization applied. Other versions of this that I've seen do have more options, like there's optimization for the web, photos and videos. The last one I saw, they were separate options. And maybe HP just looked and said they don't need to be separate options, and maybe web optimization doesn't need to be a thing. And one thing that's new here is auto color, right? So you can automatically apply colors based on the application that you're using. So we can also take a look at that camera shutter key that I said. So notice if I hit this button here, you get a little white flash over the webcam there. So that means that nothing can look through it. And that is something that was not HP's original approach to the physical camera shutter. And you could also see, by the way, we have the little red light on the key that shows that it's active. The original approach was a switch on the side of an old Spectre X360, and all it did was disconnect it internally,
right? So what it would do is you just get a little icon on the screen like that. And then it would just disconnect it internally. And then if you could actually look in the device manager, and the webcam would be gone to show that it was disconnected, right? But I guess that wasn't enough, because remember, this is a feature that's built on distrust. You know, like people put tape over their webcam because they don't trust it. So I guess they didn't trust that the webcam was actually being disconnected internally. So they actually put that little guard over it, so you can actually physically see that the webcam is being blocked. So HP calls this a minimalist design. Now, you'll notice that like the sides are flat. It's really jarring to see like how there's that much more of a gap here than there is in the. That's weird. That's a weird look. But anyway, it's got pretty much flat edges, and it's also weird. Like this is a kind of a weird design, because we're also seeing where like the bottom extends a little bit beyond where the top extends to. So I don't know if this is supposed to be flat or if it's actually warped. I don't know. But either way, like it's flat edges. We've seen in other HP designs where they've had like chamfered edges, where there's like a groove across here where it's easy to open the lid. This is not so easy to open because the front is actually like the bottom is actually sticking out a little more than the top edge. All right, so that is the HP Envy 14. Yeah, if you push this flat, it actually does sort of come out to the edge. So that's interesting. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, this particular model is $1,249.99. It starts at $1,069.99. You can get it with a Core i7 if you want. Although this is my first Core i5 1135 G7 that I'm testing, so I'm kind of interested to see, what it can do versus the Core i7. You know, some of Intel's naming is a little confusing. The G number stands for graphics power, right? So you would think that G7 being the same in the Core i7 1165 G7 and the Core i5 1135 G7 would be the same, but it's not. So the i7 has 96 units. I think the i5 has 80. So it's not quite there. And of course the CPU, like the clock speed, is turned up a little bit on the i7, but it's not that different. You know, it's all 10 nanometer. It's all quad core. Hyper-threaded, stuff like that. So, an i5 is meant to be a very mainstream chip, so like I don't see why this would be problematic in any way, I want to test a little bit of gaming on it too, because, it's got the dedicated graphics on top of that. Iris Xe is actually very good, and you could do some full HD gaming on it, so I want to test that out, because that on top of the dedicated graphics might be kind of interesting, so, and video editing and stuff as well. This is aimed more at creators, right? So anyway, guys, that's it. I'll have a review on this in probably about a few weeks. So stay tuned. I'm Rich from NeoWin. Have a great night.